Hello there. In this video, we will be discussing how can you become a successful coach. So if you're a new life coach, a spiritual coach, a business coach, a performance coach, this video is perfect for you. We're going to discuss the 3 things that you need to consider to become an outrageously successful coach. Before we get started, hit the subscribe button so every single week when we release a new video on how you can be more successful as a coach, you get a notification. So go ahead and do that. And now, let's roll it. There are 3 specific areas that you need to work on for you to constantly upgrade your ability to be able to coach and to be able to produce results for your clients, and also be able to enhance your business, increase the money that you make and the abundance that you have, and also be able to be more known in the industry that you really operate in. Now, before we get into these 3 areas, I want you to remember that you need to work on all 3 areas for you to constantly create progress in your career. You need to focus on one area at a time, but over the course of few months, a few years, you need to find a way to constantly rotate between all 3 areas and work on all 3 areas so you can expand your practice. The first area that you need to work on is yourself. You see, most of the coaches, especially when they're new ones, find it harder to actually get started. Find it harder to find the confidence to get started, to find the confidence to be able to create results, to be able to approach a potential client. They find it harder to be more productive. They find it harder to get past their own self-doubts and their own self-beliefs. And because of that, it becomes harder and harder for them to be able to create progress in their ability to create results with their clients and their ability to produce revenues and income for themselves. There's 3 specific areas I want you to focus on. First is your belief in yourself. You see, when we are starting something new, we often doubt ourselves and our capabilities because it's something new. It's completely uncertain. And when it's uncertain, there is constant dilemma of, will this work? Will this not work? Am I doing this right? Am I the right person? All of these thoughts that keep developing in your mind as you're taking this journey become and create a self-sabotaging behavior in you, because you doubt if you can actually create the outcomes that you're promising, because you doubt that you will go into a conversation and not really know what to say. It hinders your ability to take action and actually clarifying that doubt into something that is actually a result. You see, what happens in our life is, as we are going about creating something new, because we are leaning constantly into uncertainty, our minds, which are trained to be certain, our minds that want the certainty, want the clarity, want the focus, kind of stops us every single time we are approaching uncertainty. It kind of goes, oh, that's too uncertain. Let me go back into something that's safe. Our minds are wired not for higher performance. Our minds are wired for safety, right? Because that's how we were for the greatest time as humanity, where we always wanted to be safe. So what does one do when you're experiencing doubt? What do you do? Well, the greatest antidote to doubt is action, which means if you have doubt that comes up, if you have some kind of self-sabotaging thought that is stopping you in creating movement in the direction that will create progress for you, replace it with some action. Now, I know Tony Robbins says, take massive action. But when you're creating new habits, it's not about massive action. It's about tiny actions that build trust with yourself. If you're able to take small, tiny actions that gives you trust that you can continue to make progress towards an uncertain direction and still get some success, you are more likely to continue to take action towards that direction. My invitation for you is, instead of leaning into self-doubt, ask yourself what little action I can take that will take over my self-doubt and let me move towards the direction and the outcome that I really want for myself. Now, the second thing that you need to constantly work on as a coach to develop yourself is confidence. Among many other factors, one of the key reasons why you feel confident or not confident is based on stories that you tell yourself. Let's assume life's timeline, right? So if, let's say, this is where you were, where you start your journey, and this is where you are today, where you must have had a life experience that is more like this. You had many good events and some bad events that have happened in life that has created the experience of life for you and has gotten you here. Now, because of the extremity of the negative experiences that we have in life, it is easier for us to remember what went wrong in our life. So if I was to chart your life timeline, you may be able to very easily spot all the negative things, so the things that were a negative experience for you, much more easily than spotting the positive experiences. It may be much easier for you to kind of find why things didn't work or haven't worked than to find things why it did work. And that is a common problem that we have, because as our minds, like we know, wants to protect us all the time, and because of that, it secures the negative experiences so we don't have to have that experience again, and our mind can protect us from it. But it actually deters our confidence. It takes away from our confidence because it constantly reminds us how things have gone bad. So every time you have a clear memory of your negative experience, but not a clear memory of your positive experience, you are actually taking away from your confidence because your mind is telling you why things won't work. The way to change our thoughts, change the stories that are in our minds, is to remember the peak experiences. If we could track all the positive experiences that we have had in our life and chart it on a timeline, we will find that we have increased confidence because now we remember all the good things that have happened. I also want to invite you to use your body to experience more confidence in you. If you sit up tall and if you walk a little bit tall, you will see that you have an increased level of confidence when you show up in a conversation. That is your body influencing your mind. The third thing that you need to work on constantly on yourself is your personal productivity. You see, in the modern world, distractions are available everywhere. They're constantly here to take away our attention, and because of that, we are always in the experience of feeling less productive than we possibly can be. One of the key things that you need to remember about productivity is a lot about focus and clarity. If you don't know where you are going, it's hard to be productive in the moment, which is why I invite you to consider having a planning hour. You see, what I have found is that if you dedicate about an hour a week to just know what would be the biggest wins for the week and work towards getting those wins, we tend to work a lot more productively. I work only a few hours a week because every single week I would sit down and write, what are the 3 things that I could do this week that will make an absolute win for the week? And then I go one step deeper. I find what is that one thing that absolutely will be the best, and I would think a week is a winning week if I got that one thing done. Because of that experience of knowing that one thing, usually that one thing gets done in the first few days of the week, which allows me a lot of comfort and space and getting the outcomes that I really signed up for the week, which makes me really productive because I'm focused on what is the one thing that would really move the business. So that was the first element that you need. The second element that is vitally important to become a successful coach, irrespective if you're a life coach, a performance coach, a spiritual coach, a business coach, whatever type of coaching that you do, is your methodology. You see, a lot of us approach coaching as the most general thing that we can approach in life. We say, all right, I am going to be a life coach and I'm going to work on all areas of your life. Well, when you're a new coach, it often is a challenge when you're trying to work on all areas of your life because that is a long-term project. And when you're a new coach, it's harder to get long-term clients because honestly, the clients are trying to figure out if you're even the right person. Which is why if you start with the approach in mind which says, okay, what's the one thing within the scope of life that I could be really, really good at, and I can definitely drive results, and I can definitely have a structured way of creating results with my clients, it makes it easier for your clients to say yes. It makes it easier for you to actually deliver results. It becomes easier for you to even approach potential clients because you're clear about the outcomes that you're going to drive for your clients and you have a methodology to achieve the same. Now, most of us have that methodology within us if we have had the experience of life. And that's how we are approaching becoming a life coach or a business coach or a spiritual coach or a performance coach. We personally experience performance, and so we go, oh, I know how to be a better performance coach because I know how to drive performance in myself and I've tested many things, so I know what works and what doesn't. So experience of life may give you a methodology, but often it may be incomplete, which is why it's always a great idea to borrow methodology from somebody who has done this over years and years. This is where a certification is very useful, or a program or a course that shares full methodologies. Now, you may already know that at EverCoach, we do find some of the best coaches in the world, and we share their methodologies in different quests around different areas of life. So if you would be interested on that, we'll post a link below that will allow you to see all the quests that are available on evercoach.com, so you can go check it out. In either of the scenarios, what you're really doing is borrowing somebody else's methodology and then in time adapting that methodology to your own experience, your own results with your clients. It's very important that you start with a methodology that works, and secondly, you're constantly upgrading the methodology that is already working. The reason why upgrading the methodology is equally important as finding one is because that is what distinguishes an outrageously successful coach from an average coach. An outrageously successful coach is always looking for the bleeding edge. You're always looking, how can I get even more success? How can I create even more results? How can I even get a better result than my client is already experiencing? And nothing makes a coach a more successful coach than a coach that creates even better results. So second element, key element, is working on your methodology. The third element is working on your business. I can't even begin to share how many of our students have had great methodologies, are working on themselves, but fail to identify that if they do not have the business acumen that is required to create a successful coaching business, most of the time they would fall flat on their face and not be able to actually get clients to come and work with them because they never put the time and effort that it requires to actually build a business. So my invitation for you would be to ask yourself, what is the business structure that you're following? What is the packages that you want to create? What's the way you want to collect payments? What is the contract and the agreement that you have with your clients, so you are able to not only create results for them consistently, but also be able to share those results with the outside world? You need to work on yourself. You need to develop your methodology, but you absolutely have to have a business plan and a business structure that allows you to be able to create clients, serve them, and honestly make money. Because without that money, you will always be in that cycle of wanting to be a coach and never really take the step to becoming a coach. Now, I know business education can get really complicated. A lot of us have struggled in time to be able to find the right business strategies to use as a coach. And honestly, there's so many of them out there in the world that sometimes it feels overwhelming, which is why I've created a class that you can attend right now that will allow you to be able to identify some of the key myths that are there outside in the world that stops you from being a successful coach, being able to get started on the right foot, and being able to create the results that you want to create for not only your clients, but for yourself and in your business. So below this video, you will find a link that will take you to this masterclass. This class is a free class. You can go attend it so you can get started in your coaching business in just 3 weeks. So these are the 3 areas that you need to work on to become extraordinarily successful as a coach. Area 1 is you yourself, area 2 is your methodology, and area 3 is your business. Let me know what you think about these 3 areas, and if I missed anything, share with me in the comment section below. Also share what is the area that you're absolutely great in, and what is the area that you like to work on more and develop more competence. If you haven't already, hit the red subscribe button so every single week as we release new episodes, we can send you a notification on YouTube. Go ahead and hit the like button if you liked what we talked about today. Also remember, below this video is a link to a free class that you can attend and learn about the 4 myths that may be stopping you right now as a new coach, and also a 3-week process that will help you get started in your successful coaching business.